They all laughed when she helped the broken old man until a billionaire saw the kindness that would change their lives forever. It was a cold afternoon, and the sky was gray with clouds. People walked quickly through the busy street, trying to stay warm. The diner on the corner was full. People were talking, eating, and laughing. It was lunchtime, and the place was crowded, with workers, students, and families. The smell of coffee and fried food filled the air. Inside the diner, no one noticed the old man outside. He was wearing an old coat with holes in it, and his shoes were worn out. His beard was long and messy, and his hands were shaking. He looked tired, hungry, and lost. As he tried to open the door of the diner, his legs gave up. He slipped and fell on the cold floor just outside the entrance. Some people near the windows saw him fall. A few customers looked at him, but instead of helping, they started to laugh. One man said loudly, "Looks like someone had too much to drink." Another woman giggled and whispered to her friend, "Why do people like that come here? This is not a shelter." Laughter spread across the tables. A group of men in expensive suits sitting near the door laughed the loudest. They didn't hide their cruel jokes. One of them pulled out his phone and took a picture. Inside the diner, a waitress named Mia was picking up empty plates. She was in her early 20s, with tired eyes and a kind smile. She had only been working at the diner for a few months, but everyone already knew she was different. She always treated people with respect, no matter how they looked. She had grown up in a small town with her grandmother, who always taught her to be kind to everyone, even strangers. Mia looked up when she heard the laughter. She saw the old man lying on the floor outside. Her heart broke. She dropped the tray on the counter and ran outside. The manager behind the counter shouted, "Mia, get back here. That's not your job." But she didn't listen. She kneeled beside the old man and gently asked, "Sir, are you okay? Let me help you." The man looked at her with tired eyes. No one had spoken kindly to him in a long time. She helped him sit up slowly. His clothes smelled of the street, and his hands were cold. Still, Mia didn't back away. She held his arm carefully and helped him stand. People inside the diner watched. Through the windows, some shook their heads, others kept laughing, and a few just went back to eating. No one offered to help. Mia opened the door and guided the man to an empty booth near the back. The manager looked angry. He muttered something under his breath but didn't stop her. Mia brought a glass of water, placed it on the table in front of the old man. She smiled at him and said, "Take your time. You're safe here." The man nodded slowly. He hadn't eaten a proper meal in days. Mia reached into her pocket and took out the tip money she had earned that morning. It wasn't much, but it was enough for a warm meal. She went to the kitchen and ordered a bowl of soup, some bread, and coffee. The cook raised an eyebrow and asked, "Who's that for?" She said softly, "A customer. I'll pay for it." The food was prepared. Mia brought a warm towel and let the man clean his hands. She asked him if he needed anything else. He looked at her with surprise, as if he couldn't believe someone was actually being nice to him. "Thank you," he said in a shaky voice. "People usually don't talk to me. They just look away." Mia sat beside him for a few minutes and listened as he spoke. His name was Mr. Grant. He had once been a teacher, but life had been hard. He had lost his wife and son in an accident. After that, he couldn't focus on work, and he lost everything. He ended up on the streets with no one to turn to. Mia listened quietly. She didn't interrupt. She didn't judge. She just let him talk. Her eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them away. "I'm really sorry for all you've been through," she said softly. "You don't deserve to be treated like this." When the food arrived, she placed it gently in front of him. "Eat slowly," she said, smiling. "There's more if you need it." The old man looked at the hot soup, his hands trembling as he picked up the spoon. For the first time in many days, he felt human again. At the other tables, people continued talking and laughing. Some still stared and whispered, "She's wasting her time," or "Why is she even helping him?" One of the suited men scoffed, "She's playing hero. That guy's just a bum." The manager kept looking at the clock, clearly annoyed. He didn't like the attention Mia was bringing. But Mia didn't care. She didn't do it for attention. She didn't do it for praise. She just couldn't walk away from someone who needed help. What no one noticed was the man sitting alone in the corner booth. He had entered quietly, wearing a dark coat and simple clothes. He looked like any other businessman, calm, quiet, and observant. His name was Richard Halston, though nobody in the diner recognized him. He was one of the richest men in the country, the owner of several companies, buildings, and charities. He had come to the diner for a quick lunch meeting, but when he walked in and saw what was happening, he changed his plan. Richard watched everything from the moment the old man fell to the way Mia helped him. He saw the cruelty of the crowd and the courage of one young woman. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He just observed. His eyes narrowed when he heard the jokes. His hands clenched when the manager shouted at Mia, but he remained calm. Took out a small notebook from his pocket and began to write something. Every now and then he looked up at Mia. His expression was unreadable, but something in his eyes had changed. It was as if he had just discovered something very rare in a world full of selfishness. True kindness. Mia didn't know she was being watched. She was too busy making sure Mr. Grant was okay. She brought him another cup of coffee and wrapped a napkin around his cup so it wouldn't burn his hands. She cleaned the table around him and checked if he needed anything else. Mr. Grant looked at her with tears in his eyes. He held her hand gently and said, "You're an angel, miss. The world doesn't have many like you." Mia smiled and squeezed his hand. "Everyone deserves a little kindness," she said. After the man finished his meal, Mia packed a small bag with leftover bread and a water bottle. She gave it to him quietly. "In case you get hungry later," she said. Mr. Grant stood up slowly. He thanked her again, over and over. She helped him to the door, and he walked away with small, tired steps. As he left, some customers looked away. Some shook their heads, but Mia didn't care. She had done the right thing. Richard finished his meal in silence, left a large tip on the table, far more than the meal cost. As he walked out of the diner, he turned back for a moment. His eyes met Mia's, just for a second. She didn't know who he was, but she nodded politely. Richard nodded back, then walked out into the cold. Behind him, the diner buzzed with noise again, as if nothing had happened, but something had changed. A seed had been planted, and very soon. That seed would grow into something that would change Mia's life forever. The next morning, the diner opened like it always did. Same chairs, same smells of coffee and eggs, and the same rush of people walking in and out. Mia arrived a little early. She wore the same black apron, tied her hair back and smiled, even though her eyes looked tired. Helping the old man yesterday had made her heart full, but the reactions of people still hurt her. Her manager had scolded her again after the old man left, telling her not to waste time on homeless people. Some of the regular customers had whispered about her, and her coworkers. They didn't say anything, but she could feel their cold. Look, still, Mia didn't regret anything. Deep inside, she knew she did the right thing. At the same time, in a tall glass building far from the diner, Richard Halston sat in his office. The room was large and quiet, with big windows showing the whole city. Richard didn't look like someone who owned so much. He wore simple clothes, didn't like cameras, and preferred being alone. Most people in the world only knew his name, not his face. He rarely did interviews. His billions were earned through smart real estate investments, but he stayed away from fame. What mattered to him was character, honesty, and kindness. And what he saw in the diner yesterday stayed in his mind. Richard kept thinking about Mia and the way she helped the old man. Even when others laughed at her, she didn't know who was watching. She didn't know there was a billionaire sitting just a few feet away. She didn't help because of money or praise. She helped because she cared. Richard had seen hundreds of people in high positions pretend to be kind only when someone important was around. But Mia, she had no idea anyone noticed her, and still she showed more compassion than anyone else in that room. He opened the small notebook he'd used at the diner and looked at the notes he wrote. Then he picked up the phone and called his personal assistant. "Find out everything you can about a waitress named Mia who works at Rose Street Diner." Quietly, he said. The assistant replied with a short "Yes, sir," and hung up by afternoon. Richard knew everything about Mia, her full name, where she lived, her age, and even that she took night classes at a small community college. He found out that Mia worked 2 jobs, one at the diner and one cleaning offices in the evening. She had no parents, and after her grandmother died a few years ago, she had no one. Yet she still smiled, still helped others, and still believed in goodness. Back at the diner, Mia was serving coffee to a group of students when a man in a suit entered. He looked around and walked up to the counter. "Is Mia here?" he asked. The manager raised his eyebrows. "She's busy." "What do you need?" he asked rudely. "Just need to speak to her for a moment." "It's about an opportunity," the man said calmly. The manager called Mia, rolling his eyes as if expecting some silly job offer or customer complaint. Mia walked over, wiping her hands on her apron. "Yes?" she asked politely. The man smiled. "Night. My name is Andrew. I work for Mr. Richard Halston." Mia blinked. "I'm sorry, who?" "Mr. Halston would like to meet you. If you're free, we can drive you to his office now." "It's nothing bad, just a conversation." Mia looked confused. Why would someone like that want to meet her? "I don't understand," she said. "Why me?" Andrew smiled kindly. "You'll understand soon. He saw what you did yesterday." Mia hesitated. She looked at her manager, who was already annoyed. "You can go," he said sarcastically. "Maybe he'll give you a new job, and we'll finally be free of your kindness act." Mia felt embarrassed, but she kept calm. She nodded and followed. Andrew, outside. A black car waited outside the diner. It wasn't flashy, just neat and clean. The driver opened the door for her, and Mia sat inside nervously. She had no idea what was waiting for her. 30 minutes later, the car stopped in front of a tall building. The glass doors opened as they stepped inside. Everything was quiet, polished, and professional. Mia felt out of place in her diner uniform and old sneakers. Andrew smiled and said, "You're doing fine. Just be yourself." They went up in the elevator to the top floor. When the doors opened, they stepped into a warm, peaceful office. Bookshelves lined the walls, and a painting of a tree hung behind the desk. Richard stood up from his chair as Mia entered. "Hello, Mia," he said, smiling. "Thank you for coming." Mia looked surprised. "You were at the diner," she said softly. "You saw everything." Richard nodded. "Yes, I did. Saw how you helped Mr. Grant. I saw how others laughed, but you didn't stop. That told me more about you than any resume or degree ever could." Mia looked nervous. "I didn't do anything special. You just needed help." Richard's eyes softened. "That's exactly why it was special, when people thought he was useless. You treated him with respect. When others laughed, you stayed kind. You didn't do it for attention. You did it because it was the right thing to do." He paused, then continued. "I believe people like you deserve a chance to grow. So, I'd like to offer you something." Mia's eyes widened. "Offer," she repeated. Richard nodded. "I run a foundation that helps underprivileged people, young adults with potential, but no support. We offer full scholarships, mentorship, and jobs for those who want to help others. You'd fit perfectly. You can study what you want, learn from professionals, and work with us to bring kindness into more places. No tricks. It's just opportunity." Mia felt like the room spun for a moment, but "I'm just a waitress," she whispered. "You're not just anything. You're someone who made a difference without even trying. That's rare. That's what we need." Tears filled her eyes. She thought about her grandmother, who used to say, "One day the world will see your heart, Mia." She never believed it would happen like this. "Are you sure?" she asked. "I mean, I don't have big degrees or money, ... Richard nodded firmly. "I'm very sure. What? You have something better. A heart that cares." Mia took a deep breath and nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll try. Thank you." Richard handed her a card. "Take a few days if you need. But this door will always be open for you." As she left the building, she looked up at the sky, feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Back at the diner, her coworkers were curious. "Where did you go?" one asked. "You missed the lunch rush," Mia didn't say. Mush, she just smiled and said, "Just met someone kind." That evening, Mr. Grant sat in a quiet corner of a small shelter. He ate a warm meal given by one of the staff and looked at the sky through a window. He remembered the young waitress who treated him like a human being. For the first time in years, he felt seen. He didn't know what was happening in Mia's life, but he hoped she was happy. What none of them knew was that this small act of kindness had already started a chain reaction. Mia's life had changed in just one moment, not because she had power or wealth, but because she chose to be kind when no one else did. And now, someone with power and wealth had decided to lift her up. It's not because she asked for it, but because she earned it through the quiet strength of her heart. The story was only beginning. The morning sun rose slowly as Mia stood at the small bus stop near her apartment. She wore her usual clothes, plain jeans, a light sweater, and the same black shoes she used every day at work. Her heart was beating faster than usual. In her hand was the white card Richard Halston had given her 2 days ago. She kept looking at it again and again, as if trying to make sure it was real. The name on it, the gold letters, the official logo, everything felt like something from a dream. She had spent the last 2 nights thinking about what had happened. A billionaire had seen her act of kindness, had called her to his office, and offered her a future she'd never imagined. Even now, she found it hard to believe. Mia had no parents, no brothers or sisters, and no one to guide her in life. She had grown up with her grandmother, who had passed away a few years ago. Since then, Mia worked 2 jobs to survive. She worked long hours at the diner and cleaned offices at night. She took online college classes when she could afford them. Of a better life always felt too far away. That is, until now. The black car pulled up in front of her. The same driver from 2 days ago stepped out and smiled. "Good morning, Miss Mia," he said politely, opening the door. She smiled nervously and got in as the car drove through. The busy streets, Mia stared out the window. Her hands were cold. She didn't know what would happen next. What if this was all a mistake? What if she wasn't good enough for whatever was coming? But then she remembered Mr. Grant's eyes when he thanked her, the way he had held her hand. That moment gave her courage. The car stopped outside a different building this time. It was modern, tall, and surrounded by green trees and flowers. A security guard opened the gate as they entered. Mia stepped out and looked around. It didn't feel like a business office. It felt warm, calm, and peaceful. Andrew, the same assistant who had visited the diner, came out to greet her. "Welcome to the Halston Foundation," he said with a gentle smile. "Mr. Halston is waiting." Sighed. The building, everything was neat but not fancy. The floors were clean, and the walls were filled with photos of people smiling, children playing, and communities building homes and schools. Mia stopped and looked at one photo. It showed young people planting trees in a village. Others showed an old man getting medicine from a small clinic. Andrew explained, "These are all the people we've helped over the years. The foundation works in different places: schools, shelters, hospitals, farms. We try to reach those who are forgotten." Mia listened carefully. All sounded wonderful, but also overwhelming. "And what would I do here?" she asked quietly. "We'll talk about that in a moment," Andrew said, opening a door. Inside was Richard Halston, sitting calmly with a cup of tea. He stood up and welcomed her. "Good to see you again, Mia," he said kindly. "I'm happy you came." Mia sat down nervously. Richard looked at her for a moment, then began to speak. "Let me tell you a short story," he said. "Many years ago, I was a young man with no direction. I'd lost my parents, and I had no interest in school. One day I met a man who gave me hope. He was my teacher. His name was Professor Grant." Mia's eyes widened. "Mr. Grant, the man from the diner?" Richard nodded. "Yes, that same man. He once saved my life, not with money, but with words, with time, and with belief. I became who I am today because he treated me like I mattered, even when I didn't believe it myself." Mia was silent, her eyes filled with tears. "That day in the diner," Richard continued, "I saw someone else doing the same thing. I saw you helping him, without knowing who he was, without caring about what others thought. You showed true kindness. And I realize you are the kind of person this world needs more of." He then explained the offer again. The foundation would give Mia a full scholarship to study any subject she liked. Along with that, she would get training, guidance, and a job at the foundation, helping design programs for people like Mr. Grant, people who were once strong and proud, but now lost in life. You've been through your own struggles, Richard said. It makes you more understanding, more real. You don't need to change who you are. We just want to help you grow. Mia took a deep breath. But I'm not used to this. I don't come from this world. I'm just ... me. Richard smiled. That's exactly what makes you perfect. The next few weeks were a big change. Mia quit her diner job, said goodbye to a few friendly coworkers, and stepped into a new world. She was given a simple apartment near the foundation. It wasn't big, but it was clean, quiet, and all hers. She cried the first night, not out of sadness, but because it was the first time in years she had a place to call her own. At the foundation, Mia started learning. She was given a mentor, a woman named Clara, who had once worked in shelters and knew the pain of poverty. Clara became like an older sister to Mia. She taught her how to write project reports, how to talk in meetings, and how to speak with people from different backgrounds. Mia also met other young people like Hurich, with their own hard stories, but all full of hope. She was enrolled in college full-time. And for the first time, she didn't have to worry about money for books or food. She studied social work, learning how to build programs to support people struggling with homelessness, addiction, or loneliness. Every lesson reminded her of Mr. Grant, and how one simple act had changed everything. One day, while organizing donation records, Mia saw Mr. Grant's name on a file. Her heart jumped. She asked Clara about him. Clara smiled and said he's doing better now. Mr. Halston arranged for him to live in one of our supported apartments. He's even started teaching again small classes for kids who can't afford regular school. Mia felt joy burst in her heart. She remembered the sadness in his eyes that day in the diner. And now he was teaching again. It felt like the world was healing little by little. Later that week, Mia was invited to visit one of the programs the foundation supported. It was a small shelter for women and children. When she walked in, she saw people sitting on mattresses, children drawing with broken crayons, and a young mother feeding her baby with a borrowed spoon. Mia sat down with one of the children and helped her color. The little girl asked, "Are you one of the rich people who come and go?" Mia laughed. "Gently, no, sweetie. I'm just like you. I'm here to help, not to leave." That night, Mia couldn't sleep. She thought about how much pain was still out there. But instead of feeling hopeless, she felt determined. If one act of kindness can change a life, she whispered to herself, then what can many acts do? The next morning, she went to Richard's office and said, "I want to do more. I don't just want to learn. I want to help build something that lasts." Richard looked at her with pride. "That's what I was hoping you'd say." He assigned her to a new team that was working on Second Chance, a project that helped people who had lost everything get back on their feet. It offered job, training, food, shelter, and most of all, respect. Mia worked day and night with the team. She used her own experience to make the program better. She suggested small things like letting people choose their own clothes instead of wearing donated ones, or offering simple haircuts to restore dignity. Her ideas came from the heart, and they worked. After a few months, Mia was asked to speak at a small event the foundation held for donors and volunteers. She was nervous. She had never spoken in front of so many people. But when she stood up and looked at their faces, she remembered her journey from a tired waitress with aching feet to a young woman making real change. She told them the story of Mr. Grant, of how people had laughed at him, and how that moment changed both their lives. She ended her talk with a quiet sentence. "Kindness doesn't need an audience. It just needs courage." The room was silent for a few seconds. Then, filled with applause, Richard watched from the back of the room, smiling. He didn't clap loudly. He didn't step forward. He just watched as Mia's light grew brighter. Mia's story spread slowly, not through headlines, but through people. The workers at the foundation told others about her. The families she helped spoke of her with respect. Mr. Grant even mentioned her in one of his new classes, calling her a star in the dark. And Mia, she didn't want fame. She just wanted to keep doing what felt right. Every time she felt tired or unsure, she thought about the day at the diner, when the world laughed, but her heart stayed strong, because from that one act, everything had changed. And now, she was the one changing the world one life at a time. Mia's life had changed so much since that cold day in the diner when she had helped Mr. Grant. What started as a simple act of kindness had grown into a new beginning for her, one filled with hope, learning, and hard work. But this new life was not easy. Every day, Mia faced challenges she never imagined. She was no longer a waitress serving coffee. She was now a leader working at a big foundation that helped people in need. At first, she felt nervous and out of place. The offices were shiny and filled with people who seemed so different from her. They talked about projects, budgets, and plans in a way that sometimes confused her. But Mia remembered what Richard had told her: be yourself and use your heart to guide you. With the help of her mentor Clara, Mia began to learn quickly. Clara was patient and kind. She taught Mia how to write reports that explained the foundation's work clearly. She showed her how to speak up in meetings and share ideas. Clara also encouraged Mia to keep studying social work at college. Mia loved learning about how to help people in tough situations. She was especially interested in programs for homeless people, just like Mr. Grant had been. Mia knew from experience that these people often felt invisible, forgotten by society. She wanted to change that. One of Mia's first projects was to visit shelters and communities to understand their real needs. She put on a simple coat, grabbed a notebook, and went out into neighborhoods where people struggled with poverty, addiction, and loneliness. She talked to the people there, listened to their stories, and learned what kind of help would actually make a difference. Sometimes it was food and clothes. Sometimes it was job training or counseling. Other times it was just someone to talk to, someone to show they cared. Mia's visits were not easy. She saw things that made her heart ache: children without warm clothes, mothers worrying about their next meal, elderly people sitting alone on benches. But Mia never turned away. She carried hope in her heart. She believed that even small changes could grow into something bigger. At one shelter, she helped start a cooking class for women who wanted to learn skills to find jobs. At another, she helped set up a garden where people could grow fresh vegetables. Each project was small, but each made life a little better. Back at the foundation office, Mia worked hard. She wrote letters asking for donations and grants. She organized events to raise awareness about homelessness. She spoke to local leaders about the importance of helping people who had fallen through the cracks. Slowly, people began to listen. More volunteers joined the foundation. More money came in. And with that, more programs could start. Meanwhile, Mr. Grant's life was also changing. Thanks to the foundation's support, he now lived in a small apartment with a warm bed and food on his table. The pain of losing his family was still there, but he was no longer alone. He had friends and teachers who cared. With Mia's encouragement, he began teaching again at a small community center. He taught history and life lessons to young people who could not afford regular school. He told them stories about kindness, hope, and never giving up. Mia and Mr. Grant became close friends. They shared stories of their past struggles and dreams for the future. Mia admired his strength and wisdom. Mr. Grant admired Mia's courage and determination. Together, they became a team, working to bring light into dark places. Not everyone was happy about Mia's success. Some people from her old life looked at her with surprise and jealousy. Her former manager at the diner still talked behind her back, saying she was lucky and didn't deserve it. Some of her old coworkers acted as if she had changed too much. But Mia didn't let that stop her. She knew she had a mission to help those who had no voice and to show the world that kindness could change lives. One day, the foundation planned a big event to celebrate its work and to thank donors and volunteers. Mia was asked to speak. In front of a large crowd for the first time, she felt nervous. She had never spoken in front of so many people before. But when she looked into the audience, she saw faces full of hope and support. She remembered the day in the diner, the laughter she faced, and the gentle hand of Mr. Grant. She took a deep breath and began to speak. She told the story of how she met Mr. Grant, how she had helped him when no one else would, and how that simple act led to a new life for both of them. She spoke about the struggles of homelessness and the importance of compassion. She shared her belief that every person deserves respect and a chance to rebuild. Her voice was steady and clear. She did not ask for sympathy. She asked for action. After her speech, the crowd applauded loudly. People came up to Mia to thank her, to tell her how inspired they were. Richard stood in the back, watching quietly, proud of how far Mia had come. He knew this was only the beginning. Mia's work continued to grow. She helped open new shelters, started education programs, and organized job fairs. She made sure that the foundation always remembered the people it served, not just as statistics, but as real human beings with dreams and dignity. Through it all, Mia stayed humble. She still visited the diner sometimes, not to show off, but to say hello to old friends, and remind herself where she came from. She never forgot the power of kindness and the difference one person can make. Her story spread quietly, but powerfully. People talked about the waitress who became a leader, the young woman who changed lives with a heart full of courage. Every corner where the foundation worked, Mia's message was clear. Kindness matters, and it can change everything. Mia's journey was proof that no matter how hard life gets, one act of love can light the way for many. She was ready to keep shining that light for as long as she could. The diner where Mia had once worked was a small place, but it had meant a lot to many people in the neighborhood. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other's names, where families came for breakfast and workers stopped by for a quick coffee. But time had been hard on the diner. New restaurants opened nearby and fewer customers came in. The owner struggled to keep it open. The old wooden chairs creaked, and the paint on the walls was peeling. Many people thought the diner would close its doors soon. Mia heard the news from one of her old coworkers who still worked there. She felt a strange mix of sadness and nostalgia. That diner had been the place where everything started, where she had helped Mr. Grant, the old man who had changed her life forever. She decided to visit, not as a waitress this time, but as someone who wanted to give back to the place that had given her hope. When Mia arrived, the familiar smell of coffee and frying eggs greeted her. The place looked tired but full of memories. She smiled and walked up to the counter where her old manager stood. He looked surprised to see her, but didn't say much. She asked if she could talk to the owner. A few minutes later, the owner came out of the kitchen, a kind man named Joe, who had run the diner for over 20 years. Mia explained that she wanted to help save the diner. Joe listened carefully, his eyes shining with hope. Mia told him about a plan she had been thinking of to turn the diner into more than just a place to eat. She wanted to create a community cafe, a place where people could come together, learn new skills, and support each other. The profits from the cafe would go to training young people who had no jobs or opportunities. It would be a place where kindness and respect were the most important things. Joe smiled broadly and said, "That sounds wonderful, but how will you do it?" Mia told him that with the support of the Halston Foundation, she could raise funds, find volunteers, and create programs. She wanted to hire people from the neighborhood, especially young adults who needed a chance to prove themselves. She wanted the cafe to feel warm and welcoming, a second home for many. The owner agreed and they began working together. Slowly, the diner was transformed. New paint covered the old walls, and new furniture replaced the creaky chairs. The kitchen was cleaned and updated. Volunteers came from all over to help. People donated food, supplies, and money. Mia organized workshops to teach cooking, serving, and teamwork skills. She invited local musicians to play on weekends, turning the cafe into a lively, joyful place. The day of the grand opening arrived. The whole neighborhood gathered outside the diner, now proudly called the Hope Caf. Banners hung across the front door, and the aroma of fresh coffee and baked goods filled the air. Mia stood at the entrance, welcoming everyone with a bright smile. She wore a simple dress, and her eyes sparkled with excitement and pride. Inside, tables were full of people eating, talking, and laughing. Young people who had learned new skills at the cafe waited tables, greeted customers, and served food with confidence. The old man, Mr. Grant, sat near the front, enjoying a warm meal. He smiled as he watched Mia speak to a group of teenagers about kindness and hard work. When the time came, Mia stepped onto a small stage set up in the corner of the cafe. She looked out at the crowd, friends, neighbors, volunteers, and even some of the old customers who had once laughed at her. She took a deep breath and began to speak, her voice steady but filled with emotion. She told the story of the day she helped Mr. Grant in the diner, how everyone had laughed, but she chose to be kind anyway. She spoke about how that small act had changed her life and the lives of many others. She thanked the community for believing in the dream of the Hope Caf and for coming together. To make it real, her words touched many hearts. People clapped, cheered, and some wiped tears from their eyes. It was not a story of riches or fame, but of love, courage, and the power of kindness. Mia ended her speech with a simple message. When no one is watching, choose kindness anyway. Someone's life might depend on it. After the event, Mia stayed late, talking to people, answering questions, and sharing dreams for the future. She knew there was still a lot to do, but she felt ready. The cafe was a new beginning, not just for her, but for the whole community. Meanwhile, Richard Halston watched from a quiet corner. He never sought the spotlight, but he was proud of what Mia had accomplished. He had helped her step into the light, but it was her courage, her heart, her kindness that truly made the difference. Mr. Grant, sitting beside Richard, nodded slowly. "This is what hope looks like," he said softly. Mia looked around the cafe one last time that evening. The laughter, the music, the happy faces, it was more than she had ever dreamed. She remembered the lonely old man she had helped months ago, the harsh words, and the cold laughter. And now, here she was, surrounded by warmth and love. She smiled, knowing that kindness had come full circle, and that from one small act, a whole world could change. The story of Mia, the old man, and the billionaire was no longer just a moment in a diner. It was a movement, a powerful reminder that kindness matters, and it can change everything.